Hi, everyone. My name's Julie Roth-Novak, CEO and co-founder of PartySlate. I am very excited to launch our new web series called Event Talk. Colin, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I've always wanted to have my own TV show. I know you've been on TV many times. This is kind of my opportunity to pretend I have a global TV show. And to be honest, we had over 1,000 people register for this. So we're building and building. And a big part of why we had so many registrations is you being our special guest today. So, Colin, thank you for joining us. We are so excited. I think we have someone joining by mistake. This happened last time too, Colin. So, um, whoever from your team can pop out,
Would be great.
that'll be fine. But, Colin, welcome to the show. And so many people sent in questions. I saw people at the Love Party, the Selden Love Party here in New York. There was about 500 people saying, I'm coming to the webinar, I'm coming to the webinar. So many people admire the brand that you've built, the events that you host, not only here, but around the world. And I'm so excited to have this time to get to know you better and actually ask you some really great questions about the industry and trends you're excited about over the next 45, 50 minutes. So thank you, Colin, for being our first guest.
Thank you, Julie. I'm delighted. I always love collaborating with you. This is not the first time we've been on screen. So
Yes.
maybe you're the Katie Couric of our industry.
That's the closest I could get. I always said, how do I get on Oprah's show? And then Oprah went off. And so now, this is my next chance. So for those of you who are new to Party Slate, about half of the people joining today have not been on a Party Slate webinar. Party Slate, I started 9 or 10 years ago. I remember I met Colin at the first Engage I went to. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Colin Cowie. And you were so supportive of what we were building. And you're like, I'm going to put you on my Instagram. I told my whole team. I met Colin Cowie. It was just such a highlight before anyone knew what Party Slate was. And now today, we have over 3.5 million people who are planning events visiting Party Slate, and we have over 20,000 event professional, venue vendor, and planner profile pages. And so, Colin, you've been with us since the very beginning. Thank you for all your support.
Julie, I remember very clearly we were walking on the lawn at the
Yes,
Breakers,
we were.
and you asked Darren Olosh to introduce
Darren, yes,
this, and you told me you had this big idea.
yes.
Well, congratulations, because it's extraordinary what you've done. It's
Thank you
amazing.
so
You've built
much.
a community, and you've given us all a great opportunity to share and to collaborate and to learn to love one another, which is amazing.
Thank you so much. And what I always say is when I joined this industry about 10 years ago, I was in the tech world before this. I said, this is the best industry in the world. It is creative. I think we have someone maybe joined by mistake again, which is okay.
Someone
Terrible.
from my team, I think, got the wrong link. So
Oh,
any
that's okay.
my team, please switch off.
That's okay. We have some surprise guests. But actually, before we get started, I'd love it if everyone could switch to everyone in the chat. And I'd love to know where you guys are zooming in from. Again, we had over 1,000 registration. If you can just say your company and where you're zooming in from, that would be great. I'm actually here in New York at the Hearst Tower. Hearst is one of our investors. So we have our New York office is headquartered here looking over Central Park. It is actually absolutely beautiful. So, and I know, Colin, are you in Miami today or where are you?
I'm in warm, sunny Miami. It's 79 degrees outside and not a cloud in the sky.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad it's a very kind of cold and snowy and rainy here in New York. So I wish I was there in Miami. But let's just get started. We're seeing where everyone's zooming in from, everywhere from California, San Diego, Miami, Colorado. I just saw Texas, Rio, Florida, Michigan, Los Angeles, New York City. We usually get people from overseas. I don't even know how they learn about this, but word gets out on Instagram. Thank you guys for making the time to join us. We're going to have a great conversation on our first episode of Event Talk. So, Colin, to get started, I would love, I know many people have heard this before. We have a lot of new people today. Tell us a little bit about your founding story. Many people didn't go to college for events and there wasn't kind of a career path. Tell me about how you were first introduced to the events world and went on to build kind of this epic brand that is worldwide.
Well, Julie, it was the mid-80s in South Africa. I didn't believe in the political system. I didn't think it was fair. And I thought, where could I go in the world where it's the same language and a similar temperature? So I set my sights on California.
Yes.
In those days, all of our bank accounts were very strictly monitored, and we could only take a certain amount of money out of the country. I arrived in Los Angeles with $400, one well-cut suit, an omnipresent suntan, and big dreams.
Yes.
And literally started this business from nothing. In
And
those
did
days,
you know people in Los Angeles? Were you
I
going
had a
there?
handful of friends, and
Yes.
someone introduced me to someone. And it's so interesting because I was introduced to Larry and Laurie Terman, who was the producer of that movie, The Graduate.
Okay.
I was invited to a house at their lunch in Malibu,
Yes.
and she cooked the salmon in tin foil in the dishwasher on the steam cycle. And I thought to myself, you have a barbecue outside. Why wouldn't you have cooked in the fresh natural air? Anyway, she mentioned that they were doing a wonderful party at the Museum of Contemporary Art where Count Panzo was donating his art collection to the museum.
Yes.
Would I help her with the party? And that was my opportunity. I rolled
Amazing.
up the sleeves, I chopped, sliced, diced, peeled, I arranged the flowers, I cleaned up afterwards. I got a handful of friends to work as waiters for me, and that's how I started my business.
I love it. Start right at the top. And how
Exactly.
big was the,
Bottom bottom.
yeah, yeah. At least you weren't doing the dishwasher salmon, so that's good.
Exactly.
And then how did you build from there? So that was a stepping stone in Los Angeles. And how did you start working on, was it from the catering side or was it the event planner side? What was it? Where did you start?
Well, I've always loved to cook, and I
Yes.
published two cookbooks. So I started off doing small dinner parties, 8, 10 people, 12 people, 14 people,
Yeah.
and I got bigger. And then somebody wanted me to do an engagement party, and I
Yeah.
found someone to cook for me. And then I had a handful of extra waiters, and I was the only one who was illegal at the time. I mean, I was, my immigration process was taking place.
Yes.
And everybody else was pretty much legal, and I had a business with about 20 people working with me.
Yeah.
And it scaled and scaled and scaled. And then I remember one big break, a defining moment, was 3 years into this. I was asked to be a food consultant for Hugh Hefner. How
Okay.
did that happen? Because to make extra money, I was teaching cooking classes at the Beverly Hills High School adult program after hours. And
Yes.
there was a lady there who said, would you come and be a food consultant for Hugh Hefner's wedding? So I went up to the fabulous Playboy Mansion.
Yes.
It was this beautiful Tudor mansion on the 15 acres of beautiful rolling greens and lawns. And they showed me the plans. They had a silver lame ceiling and had a fajita station and a taco station.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do it in black tie. I said, no, 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 no. I said, if I were to do it, this is what I would do. So I painted the picture of this beautiful, continuation of the home, this beautiful swagged tent. And then somebody stopped me and somebody more important came to listen to my story. And every time I told the story got bigger and better with
Yeah.
more frills and bows and statues and fountains and whatever. The third time I told the story, there was Hugh Hefner in his pajamas,
Oh my gosh.
sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
There's 12 weeks. Can you do this in 12 weeks? I didn't bat an eyelid. I said, absolutely. And I
Yes.
remember I wanted to do these Guardian statues. I had found a place in Palm Springs. So I was able to make plaster columns for me with beautiful busts on them and beautiful urns that we filled with flowers. And they said, well, it needs to be black tie, but it has to be buffet. I said, no one does black tie buffet.
Yeah.
You stand in line for it. So I made 4 food stations with Venetian drapes in front of them. I
Yes.
had trumpeters come out, blow trumpets. When the Venetian drapes lifted up, you walked up and there were 2 sets of food stations either side.
Yeah.
So the first was all caviar. So it was the caviar service, and I'd have all the waiters. I went to Western uniform and I had them all in white military outfits with purple sashes. There were purple roses. There were backdrops from the prop house. And then for the next course, everything changed completely. It was a huge break. And I had no idea how much press would be generated from this wedding.
Yes.
And anyone on the Zoom who's old enough might remember the Yellow Pages. But I got 2 books bound as thick as the Yellow Pages, and they labeled me Mr. Wedding. And that was my real big break.
That's crazy. And how did you have this creative vision? You had done these dinner parties, and where did your inspiration come from to create this story for this very well-known celebrity?
I've always been wildly visual, right?
Yeah.
So, and I've never seen a blank space without figuring out how it could look and how it could come alive.
Yeah.
And I come from a background, growing up in Central Africa, Zambia, we had 1 country club we belonged to, a hotel, and 2 restaurants we wouldn't step foot into.
Yes.
So I can't think of a time when we didn't have people coming to our home
Right.
either to stay with us or to be entertained with us or for a dinner. So I really learned from my parents.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we're in the business of making people feel welcome and comfortable. Right?
Yes.
And so that's how I started. And then, of course, having worked in South Africa and then landing up in Hollywood, I mean, I
Yes.
felt like the guy was working in black and white, was painting with my feet.
Yes.
All of a sudden, you had prop houses and, anything you wanted to do, you could build, create, or rent,
Yes.
except in our industry.
Right. And I think you told me as we were getting ready for this webinar that in the early days you really did have to source your own, custom linens and if furniture that didn't come, standard at rental companies back then.
Was a little event. In those days.
Yes.
There was a rental company where you got tablecloths that had more polyester in them than there's plastic in your credit card.
Yes.
You had three choices of chairs, four choices of plates. So in actuality, our events were more bespoke then than what they are now.
Yes.
So I remember all the tables were the same height. There was no such thing as a bar. So we went and we bought 18 inches of PVC piping and we put them under the legs of the tables. So we had 42-inch bars.
Yeah.
Then I go to the dress shop and I'd buy all the fabrics to fashion them into tablecloths and napkins that we use as overlays and runners. So we pretty much, there were only a handful of us doing parties and events back then.
Right.
I'm about to celebrate my 40th anniversary of being in this business.
40th anniversary, which is amazing, starting from this dinner party to the, Playboy Mansion, wedding, which is it couldn't be more high profile, especially at the time. I can only imagine the press around that event. And then how did you start building your brand outside of LA? So I remember you kind of settled in LA, did a lot of celebrity events. How did you take it to the next level where you started doing destination events and then eventually moved to New York?
So it really started in Los Angeles. I did a ton of celebrities. And
Yes.
because I was doing celebrities, I was invited on morning talk shows. As a
Yeah.
result of that, I got newspaper articles, magazine articles. I then was asked to be a contributing editor in Style magazine,
Yes.
doing certain sections for Extra. And then I realized that all my Hollywood celebrity clients wanted everything for free and they didn't want to pay. And
Right.
one or two clients in New York, I remember we used to have a thing called VLON. Okay, it was a plastic, and they used to say, let's put that in the ceiling and swag with VLON and light it to look like silk.
Yeah.
Right? My Park Avenue client said, let's just use silk, right? So I
Yeah.
moved VLON to New York, and I moved to New York, and that's when I started to do all this work for the Middle East.
Yeah.
At the time, the Middle East, particularly Qatar, was, and Dubai were just getting started. So there were no event planners there. So everything kind of pretty much came from the West. And that's when we started doing these really, really big mega weddings.
Yeah. And those weddings were multi-day, immense, huge, but endless budgets.
No endless budgets, but usually it was a 5 to 6 hour wedding one day.
Oh,
It
one day. Okay.
was incredible. I remember doing the first royal wedding of Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd never done a big royal wedding before. And so my mom just went crazy. And I remember when I was presenting to Her Highness, I said, this is how the main table should be. And I set that table, I gilded the lily, I went to Buccellati, and I spent $15,000 per place setting. I said, this is how the royals should dine. And I put them under this canopy with all white feathers on top, and it turned out to be extraordinary. And in an event like that, there was no such thing as video mapping in those
Yes.
days. So
Yes.
we're actually video mapping with massive projectors with lenses this size. The technology is so advanced today. It
Yes.
was extremely expensive. So a wedding like that back then was $25 million, which
Amazing.
worked out to a burn rate of about $5 million per hour. It's a
That's
5 hour.
insane.
It's insane.
Yes. It is insane. And now we were talking about some of the new technologies and projection mapping being part of some of the venues that exist today to make it more affordable or more, capable for
But way
everyone.
more approachable today because
Yes.
technology has been, as it gets better, it becomes less expensive and more
Yes.
available to everybody.
Yeah. And tell me, as you started building your business, challenges are going to be hitting you left and right. What are some of the biggest challenges that, like starting PartySlate 10 years ago, there's just endless amount of things that can go wrong and you just move on and you learn and you keep growing. What are some of these kind of challenges that hit you in the earlier days or even today that made you stronger?
If ever I should have done a reality show, I should have done it back then. you know,
Yes.
because there were no safety nets. I remember doing this fabulous big party one day, and I had a generator in the middle of Bonnie Raitt's session. She was a big star back then, in a fabulous, glamorous Monte Carlo gambling party that we had created, casino style party that we created. All of a sudden, the music went, and the generator died.
Oh gosh.
And I had a little new Mercedes Benz and I pulled it around the back and I said to the guys, take anything out your engine, but get us up and running again. And literally within 20 minutes, they had generator running. But in those days, a generator had no backup generator. We never
Yeah.
thought of those things. So much of it was trial and error. And
Yes.
the good thing about a good businessman is you only make a mistake once, right?
Yes. I
But we
completely
made
agree.
so many mistakes in the formative days,
Yes.
and today would be a good to do reality show because I think we're pretty much buttoned up now.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the
you've
biggest
probably
thing,
seen every possible scenario that could happen, could go wrong, and learn from it each time.
the musician who showed, I mean, I could make a comedy show. I remember one day a musician who showed up at the wrong venue. Somehow she got the
Yes.
wrong address. She was like 10 blocks down the road and it was in a big farm. And it was a wedding that was being televised. So all of a sudden I had no music for the ceremony. And I remember that in my car, someone had sent me a cassette from the Higher Calling, who was a gospel choir. And usually you have on that a song TRT, the total running time of the song, and it was a Jewish wedding.
Yes.
So I was sitting under a tree with a cassette that I was fast forwarding and rewinding, holding the microphone and the walkie-talkies. And when the bridesmaids go, send them quickly. And I found a song that had no mention of Jesus in it.
Oh God.
And I had 10 yards to go, and as she was coming down the aisle, I said, I'll wing this next one. And the next three bars were, yes, Jesus loves me. So I had so many things that went wrong in those days, but it was all part of learning.
Yes.
There was no,
What advice would you give? We have a lot of some newer planners that have joined the webinar. What advice would you give on all the things you've learned on preparing for the surprise of the live event? What are some of your kind of lessons learned on like the top two or three things to be prepared for that could go wrong?
pre-production, 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 and pre-production.
Yeah.
Take meeting after meeting after meeting.
Yeah.
Make sure that everybody has a plan. Everybody knows where they're going, what they're supposed to do, when and how. In fact, I do this, I call it our Bible of our events. We do
Yeah.
this for every event. This is for a small party, but there's your contacts of every single page, your
Yes.
plans, every single rental goes,
Yes.
cocktails, dinner, what happens. We
Yeah.
leave one thing left to anyone's imagination that if
No
there was
surprises.
a producer, you could hand it over to anyone.
Yeah.
This is a quarter of an inch thick. Sometimes they're 2 inches thick.
Yeah. I mean, and just to have, we talked about digital, there's a lot of new digital technology, but to have that backup of a physical that you can hand around on property is amazing.
Yeah, and because you now think about it, if a hotel opens or a restaurant opens, they rehearse for 2, 3 weeks, sometimes months before they open to the public.
Yes.
We are like live television. We walk
Yes.
onto into a field, we build a tent, we build kitchens, we bring in power, electricity, entertainment, which is smell, touch, taste, see, and hear,
Yeah.
and we have to thread it like a needle on time and on cue, because that's
Yes.
how we get to tell our stories, right?
Yes.
So I think it's about really being very buttoned up in terms of what you're doing, surrounding yourself with the best people.
Yes.
Really go and find the best people to work with. And I think you are as good as the team that you surround
Yes.
yourself.
Because your brand is being represented by every person that's part of that event.
And remember, people don't remember what went right, they only remember what went wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's the same thing. I always say, without my team, I'm just a good idea.
Yes. Well, I will say your team is amazing. We've worked with many, your marketing team, had great conversations with Rob, who has been with you forever,
Love
leading.
Rob.
I know Rob's the guy that just knows every platform, every hidden nook and cranny of Colin Cowie lifestyle. And what we're really excited about, and we can talk a little bit about it later and show the solutions we're building is you have years and years and years of digital photography, and only 1% of that is shared on Instagram, on PartySlate, on your website. And how do you have access at your fingertips, leveraging our new AI technology to find that perfect photo, right time, right place, whether it's for your website, a book, anything you need it for. And Rob was just been so invaluable to our tech team. We had like a 2-hour interview with him. It was just so much fun to talk to him.
Well, to all of our viewers out there, I just have to say that we worked on the same platform for about 25 years, and it took time to load, not easy to search. And we're in the process of migrating nearly 200,000 images to PartySlate.
Yeah. And I will share my screen. I'm just going to do a little bit of bragging for a second here on, hold on one second, on where you are so far. First of all, your profile is gorgeous. This is Colin's PartySlate profile. Again, you've been with us since the beginning. I will love to ask you about your book, The Gold Standard, because this is packed with so much knowledge, especially people, any area of hospitality, any planners. I was on the edge of my seat reading your book. And then your gallery here, this is what you were talking about. We have thousands of images today, but what we're really excited about is this new area called PartySlate Pro. If you think of front of house and back of house, this is PartySlate's new back of house application where you can edit your profile, you can look at all your real events. We've made it so I'd like to say like my mom could edit this where you can drag and drop. Don't worry, I won't move anything. But Colin, this is what you were talking about. If you wanted to search for those beautiful mirrored aisle, for example, that you did in that. It was this in Arizona. Or where was this event,
Funny,
Colin?
I was there yesterday. So this is the Amangiri in Utah.
I'm
And
obsessed with this event.
this was Tiesto's event. So I just did a complete juxtaposition of all these natural materials and showcased it all with mirror. It was pretty amazing.
And so what we did is we made it really easy to get all of your credits, your hash, you can do AI hashtags, copy that, and then download this photo right here and you could put it on Instagram. And so again, if you were thinking, where is that mirrored, walkway or aisle that we did, anything with a mirror, it will show up. Or if it's Valentine's Day and you're looking for a beautiful pink photo, this is without any tagging. This is all AI image recognition, automatic tagging in this back of house application, which is called PartySlate Pro. And so there's a lot more coming, but we're working with your team. We're working with a group of 10. We're calling it kind of our inner circle that are helping us build out this new content library. And we cannot wait to help solve what I call the Dropbox problem, where it's like dumpster diving. Like, where is that photo? And it's in my head. We want to make this super easy and really easy to share on Instagram and more. So this is coming, but I want to thank you, Colin, for giving us access to your team because you have so many photos and so much knowledge, and we want to really address those pain points that Rob shared with us. So we're excited.
I've been documenting my work, but it actually cost me was more to document the work than what it was that the profit that I was making on the event.
Yeah.
Another thing, and if anyone's starting out your business, document everything that you do.
Yes.
Besides obviously making sure that our Instagram and our websites tell a good story for us,
Yes.
you want to make sure that you can use those images. You might want to publish a book one day. You might want to contribute to a magazine.
Yes.
But it's so important.
Yeah, we just launched our first book with Hearst, who's one of our investors, called Party Slate Weddings. And Colin, a lot of your work is in that book. Without these AI image recognition tools that we used on Party Slate, it would be very hard to identify specific photos that our editor or our publisher wanted to make sure was in the book. So it's just a great way to have access. And a lot of people have drop boxes that are organized by year, or they're organized by type of event or location. But then when you're like, hey, where was those synchronized swimmers that came in that pool at Four Seasons Palm Beach? Within seconds, you can find those photos. So we're very excited. We're geeking out about AI and all the ways we can help solve problems in the industry. And again, to do what you guys do, a brand new Broadway show like every night of the week, we want to make digital marketing easier for you guys and content marketing. On to my next questions, Colin. Tell me a little bit about how you're feeling and kind of the state of the industry. And I know we've talked a little bit about we had this crazy burst after the pandemic. We've had a little bit of pulling back. Some people even talk about a little slowing in engagements and activity. Other areas, depends where you are in the country, we're seeing more activity, but mainly we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. Our traffic is up by 50% in January. So that's a good leading indicator that there's a lot of interest right now. How are you seeing the industry right now? And what are your thoughts and advice for people?
2 years ago, we almost needed a phone operator to field the calls because it was like event revolution, right? Last year was slower. And I think
Yes.
this year is definitely slower for a multitude of reasons, the election, this, that, you name it. And so I think that, even though it's a little slower now, we found with at the beginning of the year, I think, that the rest of the 3 quarters of the year are busy, but from friends and other people in the industry, the first quarter has been somewhat slower and a little quieter than usual. It's a great opportunity. It's a
Yes.
great opportunity to look at who you are and what are you projecting to the rest of the world, right?
Yes.
Are your socials up to date? Does your social media, you're getting the engagement that you're getting? Have you started doing collaborations with other people? Have you maybe spoken to a consultant or two? Right? Your website, first of all, we know that the first thing everyone goes to today, it used to be the website. The first thing they visit is your Instagram page. If they're interested, then they'll go to your website. So it's important to keep both of them au courant.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, when last did you refresh your galleries on your website?
Yeah.
Do you have any work that's dated that needs to come off the website? Is your message correct? Right.
Yes.
And then you're looking at your business internally. Do you have all the profit margins you need? Do you have your overhead as low as you possibly can? And have you surrounded yourself with the right people? So you really are running a very smart business. Because when you think about it, we live in a business that has no barrier to entry, right?
Yes.
One with a cell phone could be a wedding planner tomorrow, and there are many of them, right? So for every wedding, there are a lot of people that are pitching for that exact same wedding. And it's made the bride a whole lot more savvy.
Yes.
The bride now picks and chooses and goes between 2 or 3 people until such time as she finds where she's comfortable. And she gets all of us to do a lot of work to get to that point. And you
Yes.
get that message, oh, we've decided to go another route. We'll get you next time. We know she's only getting married once, hopefully.
Yes.
And so I think it's an opportunity for us to really refresh,
Yes.
reprogram, and make sure that we are presenting the best version of ourselves and our businesses so we
Yes.
do get to move forward in a positive way.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research on the point that you're talking about that people, it takes 7 to 10 touch points. Referrals are 1, 2, and 3 in this industry. We know that. So let's say the referral comes in and they get 2 or 3 names, then they start Googling you and they start going through your digital touch points. And yes, they start on Instagram, they go to your website, they go to your PartySlate profile, they may go to Pinterest. They are looking at, do I see something I can identify with that would lead me to believe that's the first call I'm going to make? Because I think the key is getting that first call, not the second or the third. And so when people say to me, everything's word of mouth, I 100% agree, but it's factual that they're using the internet as a tool to validate those
A
thoughts.
100%. And then the next thing is we make sure that if there's an inquiry on our website,
Mhm.
that phone call or that inquiry is responded to immediately. I'm
Yes,
talking within hours, because
yes,
it's usually the first person that makes the first contact that actually
huge
gets
advantage.
100%. I've also noticed something new that I never saw before, where clients are actually almost asking us to do work before they engage us.
Yes,
I had a client that said, I will sign when you find me the venue.
yeah,
Well, no, a venue could take from a week. I've had a venue once. We did a venue, so it took us 3 months to find the venue for the
yes,
client.
yeah,
We literally went around the world.
yeah. I think people
The
don't
client that had
understand.
had the same conversation with 3 of us,
Yeah.
right? And then they're going to find who's going to pick the right venue for them. So it's a bit of a murky water because you don't want to say no to the job, but at the same time, you don't want to give away too much.
Yeah. How do you decide how far you're willing to go in that investment? Because I did this, I did enterprise sales before starting PartySlate, and I worked with Fortune 500 companies on, digital branding and websites. And you often, it's the same thing. You often did have to come in with your ideas and your vision to actually win the business. But there's a certain point where you're giving away so much that you're being taken advantage of.
Correct. And I think there's a fine red line. You
Yeah.
can actually divide it into social business and
Yes.
corporate business, right? So in corporate business, you respond to an RFP, a request for proposal,
Yes.
where you fill a document this long, how long you've been in business, how many staff. I mean, they want to know everything about you because the big corporation is going to invest a lot of time, money, and their image with you, right?
Yes.
So let's set that aside for one moment. In terms of the events business, I don't give away too much. Because I basically say, I get to the point where I think I've demonstrated to you,
Yes.
we are the qualified company to work with you. And once you engage us, I'm happy to do A, B, C, D, or E.
Yes.
And sometimes in life, rejection is the best form of protection.
Yeah. I like
Because
that.
when you don't get that client that you've been chasing, you can also find that client is a nightmare to deal with. Right?
Yes.
And that's another thing I've found. A lot of the clients today are asking for so much. We just recently submitted a beautiful invitation to a client. She said, I loved it, but can you just give me three or four more options? Right?
Yeah.
Four more options takes a lot more time. She loved the first one.
Yes.
Right? I said, I'm willing to do two more, and I think this will give you an idea, and you end up invariably going back to the first one, or maybe
Yes.
changing the stamp or the color, the lining of the envelope.
Yeah, my favorite thing to say to venture capitalists, because it's a similar dance where they want more and more information before they make an investment, is I like to say, what would you need to hear, see, or feel in order to make an investment? And, like really peel the onion as much as you can to understand what their criteria is, because sometimes they're just kind of scared to make the decision and then they'll tell you what they need to see, and then you can come back with, the answer to that question. And I do find that in consulting and what you do is there could be that they're just scared to pull the trigger, but at the same time, they can't just keep asking for more and more and more without a contract.
Clients today are not shy. They ask for, I would say, a piece of your hair, an inch of your hairline, and a piece of your heart or soul.
So moving on to trends, and I always never sure how to ask some of the leading event professionals, event designers about this because the word trends, sometimes there's trends that it could be viewed as negative, like, well, we don't want to do something trendy. Every event is personalized, but what are some new things? Let me ask it this way that you're excited about, that you're seeing, or that you're incorporating into your events moving
I
forward?
love the way you asked that question
Yes.
because a trend has a short lifespan.
Yes, yes,
The same thing, I remember one day looking at a bride and I looked at her hair and makeup trial. I said, I don't think you should do that. She said,
yes,
why? Because I said, it is so current
yeah.
that in 20 years' time, your little daughter's going to look at it and say, Mom, what were you thinking?
Like the
So,
80s here. Yeah.
so I think things that we are seeing is, the bride today used to wear one dream dress,
Yeah.
right? Today she's wearing two to three dresses, right?
Yes.
So we're seeing mood boards, not only for the bride and her outfit, but we're giving mood boards of attire to the guests.
Yes.
They can dress accordingly.
I actually like that. Engage does that and RSVP other places, but I've heard some people be turned off by kind of attire boards. I think it's so fun to have people included in the dress code and it makes it more festive. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Especially when, I mean, your biggest trend is still destination weddings, right?
Yes.
You're going to take someone away for 2, 3, 4 days. Not everyone's going to be ready for, everybody would come appropriate for the black tie event or for the all white on the beach. But for the auxiliary events, whether it's resort attire or whatever it might be, I think people like to be inspired and given direction for what to wear.
Yes. I think
So
people like it for the most part. I like it.
yes, and I think I love the idea. I've seen a lot of brides wearing capes, which
Hmm.
we did a beautiful wedding. We saw, I recently actually attended in Switzerland, and they all wore faux fur capes in
Yeah.
the winter. It was exquisite and very, very chic. I thought that went really well. I think, we're seeing a lot of drone photography.
Yeah.
You're seeing now drones together with fireworks. We
Yes.
never saw that before.
Yeah.
Right?
Together.
Together,
Never
correct.
seen it.
The
I
newest
thought
thing
I've
is
seen it
that
all, not seen
in
that.
drones and the fireworks actually shoot off of the drones. I think that's something that's new and exciting. I love the idea of seeing all these serpentine tables and
Yes.
organic. I think that works really well. I've always loved the idea of creating a wardrobe for a room instead of a sea of round tables or square long, mix them all together.
Yes.
Take the banquet out of it and bring the living room to the table to
Yeah, I
make it personal as possible. Uh,
love it.
um, it's funny, in the earlier days, the way we decorated a tent was draping with fabric, right? And
Yes.
that went away completely and we became architecture, but all that dramatic draping has come back again.
Yes.
It's very beautiful. And we have the ability to add incredible light to it, which I think works really well.
I always say we have a chapter in PartySlate Weddings about lighting, and I always say when people are asking me about budget, not to forget about lighting because lighting, I'm the kind of person I walk into someone's house and I adjust their lighting because it's too bright. I'm like, no one wants to be at a dinner party that's like a cafeteria. What exciting things are you seeing with lighting and new ways of treating an event with lighting?
Control is the number one most important thing with lighting.
Yes.
One light can ruin an entire room. The room
Yeah.
is too bright. And the other thing is people don't realize, they think that lighting is static.
Yes.
If you're doing a wedding, an event, any event for that matter, when you're coming in from dusk into the room, right? It's usually a little light outside that is inside. So you have your light set at one certain setting, right? Which
Yes.
becomes brighter. As it gets darker, you bring the lights down.
Yes.
Between the second and the third course, as you're getting ready to dance, you bring the lights down further and you
No
start
one
to
wants to dance in a bright room. No one likes.
and you bring the volume up. So, these what you smell, touch, taste, and hear, it's our responsibility as the maestro, as the
Yes.
orchestra leaders, to use those elements to tell the story. Right.
Love
So lighting is for me, one of the most important ones because there's no one set light for the whole evening.
Yes. And what you're saying is that the ability to control the lighting throughout the night, but also the different areas is key so you can
Correct.
control the atmosphere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then of course, I'm very, very sensitive to how we work with lighting. I mean, I
Yes.
never use blue or green around people.
Yeah.
I might use it on exterior walls or things on foliage and water, but I always like to light people in skin tone friendly colors.
Yes.
And I think otherwise you're never looking at your pictures and you look like you've either got yellow jaundice or you came from Mars.
Right.
And I think the technology today has just come such a long way. I mean, the
So much.
moving lights, the electronic lights that we see, the lights that are motors that can come up and down. I mean,
Yes.
it's phenomenal. You dream it today and you can
Yeah,
make it.
we've done a lot of events with beautiful, pattern gobo lighting, in addition to projection mapping, that the the whole event can change from 1 hour to the next, kind of leading to, the end where, it's an all-out dance party. And I think I love how the lighting can actually change the mood of the room along with the music.
Also the dynamic,
Yeah.
I worked with Ira Levy, who we all know very
Oh,
well,
yes. Love
one of
Ira.
our trusted lighting designers. And he had these round spheres
Mhm.
and did literally 20 feet by 30 feet of these round spheres. And everyone was on a motor. And he had the ability to move them up and down at different heights and at different colors. So you walk into a room, you think it's the ceiling treatment. And all of a sudden, by the time you're dancing, they're 4 inches above your head and they change you different colors. It's so incredibly dynamic.
Yeah. And I know we talked a little bit about publishing books. You've published multiple
Oh,
books.
one more trend.
Oh, Trend, yes.
This I've noticed, I'm a martini drinker and I love
Yes.
champagne and I love all things alcohol. But I think the trend that I'm seeing, one of the biggest today, the young brides are not drinking as much as they were drinking before. So
True.
we're seeing mocktails and
Yes.
alcoholic wine is a really big trend. I'm seeing so much of it.
Yes. I've been seeing a lot of the mocktails too. And I think that's really nice because there are people that want to participate in the event, but that don't drink or for health reasons or for whatever reasons. And to have,
It seems to be a current trend that
yes,
kids are not drinking as much as they used to. I mean, I think
yes,
one of the biggest champagne houses just posted the fact that they're 15% down in sales. That's a big drop.
yes, it is. We have a couple questions, and then I'm going to jump back to the some of the questions I have. But how do you feel about lighted tables, furnitures, bars, centerpieces? So what trends are you seeing today? Lighting.
Repeat, please, slowly.
So they're asking about how you feel about lighted tables and furniture and bars, or I think maybe pin spots. Maybe I'm not sure. This is
The lighted furniture. That's when you see the furniture that's got the lights inside of them.
yes,
Okay. They look great in a showroom. They look great in a catalog. But put 12 of those in a room, you look like you're having your teeth cleaned. It's so bright.
it's too bright.
It's very, very bright. The most important thing, every light should have a dimmer switch on it so
Yes,
that you can be in control. Right?
yes.
And
So
particularly if you're uplighting people, right? You want to make sure that you have the time to make sure that the levels all work correctly.
love it. If there's any other questions, because I'm going to be wrapping up in the next 10 minutes, feel free to put it in the chat, any questions that you have for Colin, and we'll get to as many as we can. We'd love to hear your perspective. My last kind of section that I wanted to ask you about is as you're thinking about what's next, you've done so much. You've done the books, you've done the hotel consulting. Really, you have created a lifestyle brand. What are you excited about on what's next for Colin Cowie? Because you are not slowing down. You have so much energy, you have so much creativity. You've created this global brand. You've done the most beautiful events in the world. How can you top this? What is next for you?
First and foremost, I'm still very excited about the parties. We're
Yes.
working on a new event today, and I get as excited about designing and producing something now as I did way back then. We have a big focus. Thrive Hospitality was the company that I created outside during the pandemic.
Yes.
So we're working with a lot of hotels developers, people in the hospitality industry,
Yes.
where we're really focusing a lot on programming and on guest experience.
Okay.
I think it's something that I'm laser focused on because it's kind of like the architect builds it, the interior designer is the one who finishes it off, and then it's handed to operations. We've put ourselves between the two, so
Yeah.
we have the ability to go in and bring all those elements alive. So
Yes.
we can program what you smell, touch, taste, see, and hear,
Yeah.
morning, noon, and night,
Yeah.
spring, summer, winter, fall, so that we've always got something new and fresh to be able to put in front of the guest.
So it's more experiential versus just the check-in and the room.
Correct.
Yes.
And we're working on a couple of other projects, maybe in the safari space,
Yeah.
which is coming down the line. But we're busy and excited to be doing the things. And, the reason I wrote the book, The Gold Standard,
Yes.
pretty much not only for our industry, but for anyone in the business today, because we live in an unregulated space to start with
Yes.
no barrier to entry, right? It's a very crowded space.
Yes.
Every wedding, there's 100 people chasing the same wedding. So how do we grab attention, right, in a saturated market, and how do we stand out in the crowd?
Yes.
That's what's important today. And
Absolutely. And I know you talked about that next level service, being that service culture and
it's
preparing
it's all about how I make you feel,
how
not
you
only
feel.
the guests, but the clients, right?
Fine.
So
Mhm.
we have to focus very much on who the client is. How do
Yes.
we look after those clients? How do we stay in touch with them? Do we have gifting programs? Do we never forget their anniversaries? Do we have all their birthdays marked? They might not be having an event, but if you stay in front of their radar, they might be have a friend and they'll pass that off in conversation because you come to the top of the page again.
Absolutely. You stay relevant, but it's through thoughtful personal touches that are, it doesn't necessarily need to be even expensive. It's the thoughtfulness of what you're doing.
100%. At any opportunity you can to engage your clients and future clients.
I love
The
it.
second part of that is your team, right? The culture of the people inside of your company is incredibly important. Without the team, you don't have anyone.
Yeah.
With a rugby team, you put out marginal work. If you have a happy team and they're inspired and they're listened to and they're taken care of,
Yes.
that is what makes the difference. And
Yes.
it's about member retention.
Yeah.
That's more important than ever. There's so many people that go from one job to the next job to the next job, right?
And then you have the brain drain, which is really expensive.
Right. So we invest a huge amount of time, effort, and energy to get a producer up to speed to be able to deal with a billionaire client, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot of time and a lot of effort on our side. I also want to make sure that we create an environment
Yes.
that works for them as much as it works for us.
And,
So
and
at an event, I'll do small things like I'll make sure a senior producer gets a clothing and a shoe allowance to go and buy a new outfit before we do a big event. I want my team to walk out there with confidence and style to represent us.
yes, representing.
Provide the glam squad to come along.
Yes.
We're opening boxes and we're traveling. Allow them to experience a manicure and a pedicure.
Yeah.
We have a bonus program. We have a profit share program so that they really are my partners in the business.
Yeah.
And that's how
They
we
feel ownership. They feel together with you that they are building something and they're part of something. They're included in the future.
So those are the two sides. And then there's running your business. And that's
Yeah.
important. Do you have a vision statement? Do you have a mission statement? Do you have guiding principles? If you're more than two people, even on your own, you need to do those exercises. So I laid it out in layman's terms very easily in the gold standard to give you the ability to really run your businesses right, to
I love
focus on all the right areas.
I love it. And I know in Miami, I had the honor of introducing you at the WIPA event as the keynote speaker, and you talked about, blue ocean, red ocean, about creating opportunities to differentiate your business so that it's not just, oh, there's 10 different event planners. It's a differentiated experience. And I really, really enjoyed how you talked about kind of the bigger picture of positioning yourself as not the same, as different.
But what else can we do other than we do, right?
Yes.
Drive business. Finding a local magazine that you can start submitting your weddings to, right?
Yes.
So much of our work, we just move on to the next job, but you need to relish in those moments and submit them to different magazines to get your coverage, to increase your viewership, because out of that might come a potential client. We had some downtime and we went to the fanciest hotel in town and we got all of our most key creative partners. I don't call them vendors because vendors are cars and they sell hot dogs. We're a
Yes.
very specialized industry. I got someone to do floral and music and immersive entertainment. It didn't cost me anything. It didn't cost them anything other than providing the material. And we did a beautiful wedding showcase, right?
I love it.
Be able to do something like that, it expands what you're able to do. It expands your footprint. It gives you credibility in the space. The hotel wins, your creative partners win, you win. So it's like looking for these other opportunities, particularly now when we have a bit of downtime in the slower first quarter, it gives us the ability to do those things and to
I love
create
it.
collaborations. I think collaboration is such a big thing moving forward.
And
Before PartySlate, before RSVP,
yes,
before the other industry events that kept us together, we're
yes,
all enemies, right? Because
yes,
we were in our lanes doing our own work.
yes,
Now, because of the environment that you've created, we have the ability to share information with
yes.
one another. We can cry on one another's shoulders. We can see that we've got this client coming around. I just want you to warn you with our industry friends, and we become a community.
It's
And
great.
I
And
think the
talk
idea to
about community.
collaborate is important because the
Yeah.
sum of two parts is so much bigger than one on its own.
I agree. And there's a couple questions tied to collaborating and community. Some people are curious. Number one, they want to work with high profile planners and they want to get in. There's a lot of noise and there's a lot of competition. You have a lot of partners, but I'm assuming you're always looking for new partners. What advice do you have for people that want to show their value and get a relationship and become a collaborator on one of your events?
I think a lot of it depends on who owns the company. A lot of
Yes.
people say, this person does my music for me, this person does this for me. And I think if you stick with the same people, you end up putting out the same product, right?
Yes.
I like to think of myself as an architect, right? So if I'm doing a contemporary wedding, I use a certain cake baker, I'll use a certain floral designer, I'll use a certain whatever it might be, right, to help tell that story. So we are always looking to find new people who do new things and can offer a fresh perspective. And that way it keeps your work fresh and your look is always fresh and
And
new.
how do they get on your radar? What's the best way to break through?
We get packages sent to us, we get Instagram DMs. I
Yeah.
mean, if you want to get into someone, you'll be able to find a way to get.
Yeah, I always say, tell people, take 7 to 10 touch points. So don't give up after 3 or 4. Make it personal, make it, very, very like, hey, this is the value, this is what I can bring. And don't give up after 3. That's what I say. Because,
100%. It
with
wasn't
with PartySlate, we talked to 30 venture capitalists before I got our first yes. And once you get a yes, it starts coming faster and faster, but you can't give up. If you believe in the value of your product or your service, you got to keep trying. Keep trying.
100%. Just remember, every no is one closer to a yes.
Yes.
If you keep
Got to
going out.
brush it off. Yeah, don't take it personally. So I told one female founder of mine that she kept getting a no, kept getting a no. I'm like, tell them you're going to be in LA for meetings, get in person, and she got the funding. So you just have to keep being creative and keep having that confidence in your capability. We did have also a question on people that want to break out of their hometown. Let's say do all events in New York or Miami, but want to start doing more destination events and getting on the map for doing events outside of their hometown. What advice do you have for people that are really well known or in an established market but want to expand their horizons?
You have to increase your digital footprint,
Yep.
right? Make sure that you can reach those areas. And
Yep.
there's certain ways you can target certain zip codes to make sure that your information gets there.
Mhm.
Contributing to a national magazine is
Yep.
one way it gets out there. Start working on the local TV show. Become the
Yep.
young celebrity in town, offering a segment. And something else I thought of. You can also think outside of the box of what is there a great restaurant in town or a great bar in town that's quiet on a Thursday night? What's stopping you from taking that over, right?
Yes.
And then bringing one or two of your creative partners in, then you own that for the night, right? You
Yeah.
might not get rich out of it, but you're expanding. How many people come into that space that don't live in that town?
Yes.
And you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the best is word of mouth and experience. Think about it. When you're doing a wedding in San Francisco, right? Not all the guests come from San Francisco, right?
Mhm.
They come from all over the country. So as a result of that, the guests that come to that wedding, by giving a great wedding and guest experience, and I wonder who did that wedding. My friend's daughter's getting married. She lives in a different part of the country.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty much how I would suggest and advise.
And then one last question, then we'll wrap up. Someone asked about how do venues get on your radar? So one thing we've learned in our research is many planners actually look on PartySlate, and not just the end hosts, but planners look on PartySlate for venues, and they actually look at other planners that have worked with that venue, so they can actually get a referral. The team, how they doing, the service. What are some ways that venues can get new venues or existing venues can get on the radar of planners that are making those decisions or influencing those decisions?
It's amazing, whenever I go through my mail, to delete so much of the spam. But whenever I come to a new venue, I always look at it,
Yeah.
right? Because new venues provide something new, right? And everybody wants what's new, right? So I
Yes.
think it's really about going out there, doing the homework, and making sure that you are looking as much as they're looking to send stuff to you. Because nobody wants, so many clients today say, I don't want to go there, my friend at her wedding, my friend at their wedding. So we are thirsty for new venues. We are
Yes.
thirsty for new hotels. We are thirsty for new destinations because it allows us to share that with
Yes.
our audience and allows us to stand out in the crowd with something new.
Yeah. And I would also recommend venues that have redesigned their space or kind of relaunching their space. I do think industry events with, WIPA, been involved with WIPA for a long time, other associations, we're doing a lot of media sponsorships where a venue will invite, 40 planners in for a beautiful night of cocktails, partner, as you mentioned, with publications or with companies like PartySlate to get the word out in the industry. And then again, word of mouth can take over from
And
there. So
also sending a beautiful envelope with beautiful glossy pictures inside and an invitation where we go and see the space or
yes,
to connect with them. It's our product. It's what we do. We need the venues as much as they need our business. It's a
yes,
two-way street.
yes. And take your advice on kind of the gold standard, which is, do something that stands out, with confidence. And again,
Kind of attention in a saturated market.
it's very saturated. And I think the emails alone, I've been in digital marketing and marketing for a long time. There is nothing like something beautiful and physical that comes in the mail. If you want to get through to Colin Cowie and other leading planners, being creative to get on their radar, multiple touch points in addition to the digital footprint is my advice to you.
There's a company that my team have worked with that I haven't worked with out on the West Coast called Found.
Yeah.
They sent me a big clock this size. I opened it on my desk this morning.
Yeah.
They got my attention.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The next minute, when I created a meeting, I said, have you heard of this company? They said, we work with them already. But
Yes.
it's those things that you do
Yes.
that stand out in the crowd.
Yeah. And then I always say, it's all about targeting. And one thing I can say when you're targeting your list of planners, PartySlate does mark all the different locations you've worked at, what type of events you do. So you can do a little bit of your research or digital stalking on PartySlate to really understand the portfolio and what type of events these planners do, because then you're much more likely to be able to have a personal outreach in addition to their Instagram and their website. So, but we are running out of time. Colin, any closing advice for people that are looking to build their business, take their business to the next level? Two or three, this no pressure, but some wisdom for people that are building their business to really prioritize and focus on the right things that are going to make an impact.
Number one, your messaging. The messaging that you send out to the rest of the world is very important. That's
Yes,
your digital footprint. Make sure that your socials are up to date. Make sure that you're posting regularly, whether it's reels, a full-time post, or a story. Secondly, make sure that your website is up to date. It's telling the story that you wanted to tell.
yes,
I think run a sound business.
yes,
Make sure that your profit margins are in place. Make sure that you keep your overhead as low as possible, because we have a very sporadic business. There's one bump in the market or there's one correction in the market, and the first thing that happens, luxury gets stopped immediately, and we fall into that category. Right?
yes,
So I'd also say, on that point, find other revenue streams to support yourself,
yes.
which we could do for another webinar another day.
Yeah, well, let's
And
do it.
then lastly, and most importantly, I think surround yourself with the best people and take great care of them.
That's great. That's great.
Lucy, on that note, thank you so much for having me. I've
Thank,
enjoyed the time.
thank
I
you so
know
much,
about
Colin.
you, the questions. I wish you continued luck and success. You're doing an amazing job with PartySlate. Our industry really appreciates you.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you for your wisdom and thank you for answering all of the questions and being such a supporter from day one of the future that we're building with PartySlate. And we appreciate your partnership and congrats on 40 years.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you,
fun
everyone.
today. Appreciate it. Bye bye.
Have a great day.